And we're back with TSPN. The Supervisor Richard Forster with your Board of Supervisors report from our meeting of March 10th, 2015. Starting off the meeting today, we had Maureen Funkin from the Amador Council on Tourism, as well as many of her directors and members with her in the audience. But Maureen's main purpose was to, one, thank the board and thank you as taxpayers for paying into our transient occupancy tax. The additional 4% from Measure Q has brought in $85,000, which the board has designated for tourism activities to the Amador Council of Tourism. As Maureen said, along with their partners, they've come up with an additional $46,000. So you have over $131,000 going into promoting tourism in Amador County and promoting any kind of tourism, from wine to ag to cats, as we just had on the show. So there are a lot of things going on. You can go to that ACT website, Amador Council on Tourism website, and see all the activities. But as Maureen said, from 1992 to present, we've gone from $54 million generated for Amador County's economy through tourism through 2014, where we're looking at about $120 million generated for tourism. So quite a jump there. Our county rates higher than the other counties of Calaveras, Tuolumne, and El Dorado, and above the state average. We're 3.9% annual increase in those dollars related to tourism that are generated in our county. So the Council on Tourism does a lot more than tourism. They do the State Fair booth, and they partner with San Francisco Chronicle, the Reno Gazette-Journal, and putting major sections in those newspapers. One just came out in the San Francisco Chronicle, which generated a huge amount of business in Amador County and interest in the county. So thank you to Maureen, and thank you on the Council of Tourism. We had Terry Sanders in, our Amador County Veteran Services Officer, talking about AB 171. This is a bill to support the $2.6 million that's already in the budget, but also ask for $3 million more, which has been done the last several years. As Terry said, the $3 million that comes in generates an additional $9,500 just for Amador County. If it was permanent, though, it is temporary right now. If it is permanent, it would generate up to $35,000 more for Amador County. So we're advocating for a permanent funding mechanism for that $3 million. We're not sure if that's going to happen out of the state budget in the future. I think the governor's being prudent and being careful. Also, as Terry said, for every dollar that comes into veterans in Amador County, it generates as much as $100 in return. So we will continue supporting our veterans, and we do have a lot of veterans in Amador County, and thank you all for your service to our country. We had Aaron Bruce-Torian talking about several items on the agenda. These are all very important. It involves transferring the duties and responsibilities of the Pine Grove Corridor Improvement project that's being done from the Amador County Transportation Commission to the County of Amador Public Works Department. Those actions were taken at our meeting on Tuesday. The first was for the board to approve a resolution for an intention to initiate those plans, specifications, and estimates for the project. The second was to develop a refined phasing and funding strategy for the SR 88 Corridor Improvement Project, and initiate the PS&E, the plan specifications and estimates, as we talked about in the first segment. The third was to execute a letter of agreement transferring funding that is involved in these projects to the County of Amador Public Works Department from ACTC. Second item that was an addendum on our agenda was a master agreement with the Amador County Transportation Commission to specify that the duties would be assumed by the County of Amador. The third was a 2015 pavement management program update and a program letter agreement to get that pavement management program update completed. This is important for our county because we have a lot of pavement and not much money, as you'll hear in a moment when I talk about budget. So all of those actions were taken under this agenda item, and duties will transfer to the Public Works Department as soon as those agreements are initiated. We had the jail project discussed on this day, not at length because that was done at our previous meeting, but basically the board had to make a decision whether they were going to go with design build versus design bid build. There's a couple of main differences in those. Design build gives you a little more flexibility, possibly a little more chance for your architect and builders to be a little more creative in the way they do things. It's supposed to build in negotiable terms on some of the items, supposed to lower your risk. On a big project, design build seems to be more advantageous. For a project at our size, which, believe it or not, when you're talking about $10 to $30 million project, it's really not a big project. And design bid build seems to give you some certainty as to the pricing. It will bring in more competition on the bidding. It will build in that value engineering, and you will still have some of the advantages with the design build because you'll still be able to work with your architect and build in some creativity to what you do. Although when you're putting buildings together like this, there are standard formats you have to use. This is basically the project that will expand our jail. With that expansion, we'll be working with the Board of Community Corrections, Safety and Community Corrections, and you'll be looking at the cost advantages, and they'll be looking at that when they award the bids. This is a competitive process, so there's no guarantee, but the goal is to build in programming space, which we think will rate high when it comes to the Board of Safety and Community Corrections determining who is going to qualify for these monies, because we don't have any programming space within our jail facility at this time. We had, before I get into code enforcement, I'm going to go to our mid-year budget update because it's very important. I'm sure taxpayers want to know what's going on with their money. Now, there's a current budget deficit with our Public Works Department of $778,000. There's going to be a budget deficit proportionally per county based on the state is not bringing in the kind of dollars off gas tax, sales tax revenue that they have been, because the price of fuel has gone down. But not only that, it has to do with the proportion that counties get versus a bigger proportion that goes to pay off a revenue bond that has been basically securitized now. The state has an obligation to pay off that revenue transportation bond. So we're looking at a budget with projections in it right now that we don't know if those projections are realistic. That was the main concern of the board at our meeting. So meetings will take place to try and verify that. Otherwise, as our CAO Chuck Kiley said, it could get very messy very quickly if we don't have those revenues. That's all the time I have. I think we're going to go to a break or over to Heather. I don't know. So this is Supervisor Richard Forrester. You take care, and I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.